Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the Inside Analysis Big Data Ecosystem. That's right, folks, we're taking demos from all the cool companies in the big data universe, and there are quite a few of them with a lot of different capabilities. So today we're going to be hearing from Dell, and in particular from Vladimir Rostenkopf. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Vladimir. Take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So during today's demo, I would like to present the different capabilities of statistical platform and specifically highlight the capabilities for collaborative work of multiple people within the organization that is geared towards creating predictive analytic flows, deploying this predictive analytics, and then combining it with business rules logic. So all of that is done in validated environment for predictive analytics, and we'll see how we can comply with different requirements for validated environments. For the use case for this presentation, I'm going to use the credit scoring example that allows me to actually combine two different tasks in one presentation, because not only I will be considering different credit score risks, but also I'm going to consider different marketing opportunities and most relevant products to propose to specific clients. So I'm going to start my presentation with the end user interface, how the user would interact with the platform. But then I'm going to go into in depth into statistical platform and see how all of that was configured and implemented. So for the end user, the application that the end user is running can be implemented in a variety of different ways. So here I have a desktop application for looking up information about prospects and then building predictions for those prospects given their parameters. I can also modify and review information about them. So let's see what we have here on the table. So we have customer ID, so this describes new potential customers, and we have some information about those customers already in the system, things like balance of current account, payment of previous credits, purpose of credit, and so on and so forth, including duration of credit and amount of credit. So let's start with the first item here, and let's say we want to get our real-time prediction based on analytic model as well as business logic. So here's my form with parameters of the client. I can click update, and that will actually produce the prediction whether or not I should approve or decline this application. So it takes probably a couple of more seconds for the first run. After that, the model is cached. And now for the second run, let's say for the second customer, the run time would be much quicker. So we see that both of those customers who have no problems with current credits have steady balance on the current account, were approved for the loan. So let's see this third person here. So this person doesn't have any running account, no previous credits, and the purpose of credit is not specified. So let's see whether we can approve this customer. Okay, so it seems like the recommendation is now turned to decline. If we click here, we see a tooltip showing the confidence level, which is measured in a specific score scale. We'll discuss that in more detail a bit later. But now let's see if we can actually modify the parameters of the loan and probably still approve the application. So what if, let's say, I try to decrease the amount of credit to $500? Would that change the decision of the system? No, unfortunately not. Still, because of the other parameters, we cannot approve this. Let's try a different duration and see how that will change the prediction. Okay, so now the recommendation is to approve this prediction. Okay, so this is the front user interface. Here it's done as an application running on the system. However, in majority of implementations, that is actually implemented as a web page on the company's internal website, or it can be actually incorporated and made available as an app for mobile devices. So depending on whatever the case is, so that just highlights the different capabilities of and flexibility of our platform to integrate with various platforms. So let's see how that is being constructed underneath. So I'm going to switch my interface to Statistica Enterprise Manager. So this is the tool that allows me to see what was configured in Statistica Enterprise. So this is kind of a metadata objects that are stored. So most of them are just references to databases and connections. So let's see how the complete workflow is constructed. So I have 5 different steps for the complete workflow that we've just seen from the end user perspective. So everything starts with the data configurations for building analytic models. So we have here 2 different data configurations for campaigns and for credit risk. So this is something that people on the role of database administrators, data scientists configure for multiple users, and then all different users may actually utilize those configurations within the enterprise. By itself, this brings a huge value to the organization because you don't have to ask your DBA for the account permissions every time you need to get to the data. Once it is configured, you have access to this information. Now let's see how the analyst will use this information to build his or her analytic model. So I'm going to open Statistical Workspace, which is the primary environment for building analytic models. So I have implemented 2 simple workflows here. The first one starts with campaigns. So here we have just information about the clients and the campaigns that they were following. So we have campaign A and campaign B. And we can build analytic models to predict which campaign should be suggested for this specific client. Okay, so from the analyst perspective, I do have a lot of control on the models themselves, so I can modify parameters of the model, how I select different training characteristics for this model. And I would like to highlight here that Statistica can satisfy different requirements from the customers, starting from simplicity. So if you're looking for an automated way of building model, we have specific tools like data mine recipes that guide you through the process. Or for the advanced users, we have nodes like this one that allow you access to a majority of parameters for this model. Now, once this model is built, it outputs the PMML script to be available for deployment. So this is where we can actually investigate the model and deploy this back to enterprise so that the model is updated on the enterprise system and made available for everyone in place. A couple of other comments regarding the modeling in Statistica. So here I'm using the boosted trees model, which is implementing stochastic gradient boosting algorithm. We do have a lot of different models, and analysts can actually try out and see which model performs better on their specific task. All of those models are optimized to work on the modern hardware and takes advantage of multi-core systems as well as the system memory. So all of those capabilities are leveraged as much as possible within this workflow. Now, let's switch gears to credit scoring risk. This is the part that is frequently regulated to a high degree, and building a credit risk model and making decisions on the credit risk requires some governance and reporting capabilities so that you can explain how and why each of those specific clients was scored. So for that purpose, we do provide a couple of specific tools like weight of evidence, the tool that actually allows analysts to go and review how different variables are deemed in terms of the risk. So for example, here, let's say the balance of current account, we can combine this, the initial settings into 3 beans, combining no running account or no balance into one group, and then different levels in terms of the risk, as well as duration. So this is where analysts can actually select the most appropriate model. So for example, for the duration of the credit, we can combine different values of that predictor into a monotone dependence. And this is typically saying that the larger duration of the credit, the higher risk of default. And so the lower is the weight of evidence value. Once this is done, the result of it is available in terms of rules. So this is a transformation node, and we'll see how rules are being applied. Once the set of rules like these are created, they are actually saved and deployed back to enterprise. And again, the same as the PML models, they are made available for deployment runs. Now, this step just helps us to prepare the data for the analysis. The actual model building happens on the next step, which is, for example, here I'm using the stepwise model builder. Again, this is the place where an analyst, if this is a validated environment, can select variables for the analysis, select the codes for the credit risk, and then actually go step by step, including different variables into the model. So this way, analysts considers different predictors, not just as the best predictors from statistical standpoint, but also whether or not those predictors can be included from the legal standpoint, for example. And so that process continues every time, evaluating the most appropriate variables and sorting those by importance. So the graphical output here can be created as well. And so let's see what happens when analysts finalizes the work with the workspace. So when the work is finalized, so we have completed the workflow starting from the initial data acquisition through the analytics modules to the model building and PML models. Then we actually have access to reporting documents, and this is where all the reports on our modeling are stored. So I can review, for example, our C-curve on how well I can describe my risk. I can review the lift charts for my marketing campaigns and see how much lift this specific model adds to the equation versus the just random selection between the marketing campaign. I can review importance plot and see how different predictors play their roles in the model. So once this is all done, we deploy the PML models back to enterprise, and so that's where I can actually go back to enterprise and see this folder here where each of the models are being stored. All of the models can be stored in a variety of versions. There is an approval process to make them approved for the use in the deployment applications. So the next step is actually to deploy the model to a new set of clients. And this is what we've done using the LightScore engine and this application on the beginning. So let's see now how that is constructed under the hood. So I have here another workspace for deployment, which starts with a node that brings back a set of new customers. I have here a set of new customers that are described by their parameters. And then I jump into the rules logic, where I want to combine in one set of rules the transformations needed for my credit risk model that are based here on the weight of evidence rules that we've built using the weight of evidence module. Then we have here the model that actually predicts the risk given those variables. And as you can see, everything within this logic is actually implemented as a reference. So by changing that in the central location, all of the changes will be propagated to all of those nodes that implement the business logic. Then we calculate the score, which is just applying specific dimensions from 200 to 800. Of course, the dimensions for the score can be selected in different ways. And finally, we come to the point where we can select the cutoff. So this is really a business decision of which cutoff we want to take, depending on how much risk we want to have in our portfolio, as well as how many clients we want to have. So let's say the risk for a specific client that goes through this set of rules was low and the score was high, so we can actually make a decision to approve this application. But we can also score this application with respect to two different campaigns, campaign A and campaign B. Given this logic further, we select the most relevant campaign based on probability of response of this client, and this is what we actually give in response from this module. If the decision is declined, then the most relevant campaign is, of course, none. And then for compliance purposes, we can actually create a current date time just to see when this scoring was created. So when we are done, we actually get a set of predicted values, outputs from our module that includes score, decision, most relevant campaign, date of the prediction, which are then cleaned for the output, recorded back to the database. Every time we run this workspace, be it from the live scoring environment or from Statistica from our desktop, results are all stored in the database so we can review who and when triggered those scoring. And then we just output this table for the output capabilities. So I've mentioned a couple of times that because of the regulations, you may need to trace back all of the decisions that you've made based on the credit risk applications or loan applications. So for that purpose, you can always generate something that is called trace workbook, which will not only summarize the set of rules applied to a set of clients, but will also allow you to see which client ended up in which category. So this is a very detailed report summarizing which variable was used here to put a specific client within this group. And so that goes and gives a lot of details on how those clients are combined. So I've already mentioned that this flow was used for our live scoring application that we've seen at the beginning. So what else can we do? In many applications that we have with our larger banks, they also want to score their customer database overnight or on scheduled basis. So this is where this workspace can be turned into an automated task for the platform to resolve. So if I go to the server, I can log into the Statistica server. I can see the list of my scheduled tasks. And so this represents now, this represents actually a web interface where I can control the execution of the tasks. And for example, this deployment scoring task is running every day between yesterday and 13th of August at 9 p.m. So I can edit, I can execute this task on demand, and so this represents just a batch run for this task. Okay, so just to summarize the steps in this presentation, we started with the end user interface, how the user would interact with the predictive model combined with the business logic. We talked about the environment and the workflow starting from the data acquisition to the modeling and to finally to the final deployment. And we've concluded with the fact that the models can be actually scheduled to run in a batch mode. And one other comment here that I would made in terms of integration with other systems that might be in place at the customer side, those jobs can be triggered from external applications. So that just highlights the capability of Statistica to easily integrate with whatever assets the company has. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Oh, I mean, my immediate question, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but if you could kind of enlarge upon it. If you can clearly do a wide range of statistical things here, all the way through machine learning, data mining, and, you know, relatively simple, you know, statistical tests for things. Am I right in assuming that it really isn't particularly difficult to integrate into, let's say, corporate dashboards, you know, the output of this, so that you could, in one way or another, you know, you can just, maybe you discover something new that you think maybe a certain class of people working in the organization need to know about, and you can just plug it into a dashboard. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, this is John Thompson. You know, that's the point of these workflows and dropping off the results into, you know, different areas. So you can drop it off to ClickDeck, you could drop it off to Tableau, you can expose it through Statistica. You know, we are a very open system, so we're taking data from all over the web and the cloud and in internal infrastructure. We're doing all the things that you saw Vladimir do and using a subset of the 16,000 different analytical techniques that are inside Statistica, and then delivering it to whatever endpoint you want to visualize it or whatever system you want it dropped into for further action.
Okay, so you could really, and it's quite clear, you could build up really a fairly large number of useful routines this way. If you actually did that, you have a whole suite of things that are regularly being run. How do you monitor the performance or the hardware resource demand of the whole thing? I mean, what's the approach that you would take to that?
Well, the systems monitoring is something that we would probably have, a different part of Dell do. Typically, as you know, Robin, you've been at this longer than I have. The ETL and the data acquisition, is the most strenuous on the infrastructure, and then the modeling, happens on probably a dedicated server or a cloud environment, and you can take a point-in-time measurement, or you could feed out management or monitoring information from any of the, wide raft of platforms that are out there. And if you saw, typically what we would recommend is you set some thresholds, and once they're breached, you get an alarm that says, hey, your credit scoring application, which was scoring customers in real time and running at, 102 milliseconds, is now breaking over multiple seconds. And you can look at it and say, oh, well, we've changed the data profile. Now we're adding in 3 to 10 or maybe 100 more variables that are running through that scoring routine, and we're going to have to do something different, because in a real-time environment, a second is too long for that kind of scoring to be happening. So we can monitor it and take information from any one of the points in the process, but it's not something that we would typically do. We'd look at other monitoring software to do that.
Okay. I mean, my final question, it's just, this is very sophisticated. I'm, fairly well experienced in the use of statistics in various ways, so I can see the breadth of what's done here. But I'm kind of interested as to who the typical user is. I'm sure data analysts, or you can call them data scientists nowadays, can certainly pick this up and run with it. But are a lot of users kind of business analysts or people that are not that au fait with statistics? I mean, what's the kind of user spread for this?
At this point, given that we're picking up the legacy StatSoft customer base, we have a wide range of users, anywhere from single user licenses for consultants that, as you said, who are well steeped in statistics and data science, all the way up to, as I mentioned earlier, an enterprise implementation for Intel, where they have, they clearly have very smart people running the statistical process control for their fabs. But the output and the use of that data is typically for business analysts who are looking at operations, and operational analysts as well. So we have a spread that goes all the way from, experts and PhDs in statistician or in statistics, all the way to business users who are using the interface that Vladimir started out with. That they're just pushing buttons and taking the results and saying, no, you don't get a loan, or yes, you do get a loan, or hey, this machine is running out of tolerance and we need to do some kind of adjustment. So we have them all across the spectrum.
All right.
Well, that sounds good, folks. We've been talking to Dell, and this is some interesting stuff. Statistic is the product name. And when was that acquisition?
It was, I think it was 100 days ago.
100 days ago. All right, 100 days and you're off and running. Well,
Yeah.
folks, this has been good stuff for our big data ecosystem. We'll catch up to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.